In the year 622 AD, the city of Yathrib, what we now call Medina, was an established, thriving settlement. For nearly 1,000 years, it had been built and inhabited by three major Jewish tribes, the Nadir, the Kainuka, and the Qurayza. That same year, a new group arrived at the city gates. Muhammad and his early followers had fled persecution in Mecca, migrating across the desert seeking refuge. The Jewish community in Yathrib took them in. The local tribes accepted Muhammad and his followers as respected guests, allowing them to settle within the city walls without violence or hostility. Two distinct groups, with distinct beliefs, were now sharing the same oasis. It was a baseline of peaceful coexistence, a relationship that was about to change. The friction began over theology. Muhammad expected his hosts to adopt his new faith and recognize him as a prophet. The Jewish religious leaders refused. They maintained their own traditions and rejected his claims. This manuscript features the ancient Arabic script that recorded the resulting fallout. Following the rejection, Muhammad's tone shifted sharply, and new verses began to appear in the Quran specifically targeting Jews and Christians. The commands were explicit. Surah Ali Imran, verse 85, stated that no religion except Islam would be accepted by God. Other verses went further, ordering Muslims not to befriend the local tribes and dictating violent punishments, beheading and crucifixion, for those who dared to disobey the new authority. A theological disagreement became a political mandate. The laws of the new faith reclassified the local inhabitants. They were no longer considered allies or hosts. They were now defined as enemies to be eradicated. Muhammad acted on this new classification in phases. He systematically attacked the Nadir and Kainuka tribes, defeated them, and expelled their entire copulations from the city. That left only one Jewish tribe in Medina, the Banu Qurayza. When an invading army from Mecca arrived to attack the Muslims during the Battle of the Trench, the Banu Qurayza actually stepped in to help. They supplied Muhammad's soldiers with shovels and war equipment to dig defensive perimeters. The moment the Meccan threat was repelled, the alliance dissolved. While washing his hair after the battle, Muhammad instructed his commanders to march on the very tribe that had just supplied them, claiming he had received divine instruction to attack. 3,000 Muslim soldiers mobilized instantly. They marched straight across the arid terrain, converging entirely on the final Jewish stronghold. A millennium of history in the oasis and their immediate logistical support in the prior battle offered no protection. The ideological mandate to crush them superseded everything else. The Muslim army locked the Banu Qurayza inside their own fortress. For 25 days, the siege held. Inside these stone walls, food supplies vanished. Starvation set in, and the psychological pressure on the trapped families mounted with every passing night. Facing certain ruin, the tribal leader, Ka'ab bin Asad, gathered his people and offered three desperate options: convert to Islam to save their lives, murder their own wives and children and fight to the death, or launch a surprise attack on the Sabbath. The tribe refused to violate the laws of the Torah, and they refused to kill their own families. With no provisions left, they made the fatal choice to open the gates and surrender unconditionally to Muhammad's judgment. Muhammad handed the decision to an arbitrator, Sa'd bin Mu'adh. Sa'd was a Muslim warrior dying from an arrow wound sustained in the previous battle, and he harbored a deep hatred for the Jewish tribes. His ruling was absolute: kill all the men and take the women and children as captives. Muhammad declared that Sa'd's ruling was the judgment of Allah himself. The process framed the execution of the men and the capture of the families as a sanctioned legal outcome. The executions did not happen on a battlefield. Here, in the flat, sandy ground of Medina's marketplace, Muhammad ordered long trenches to be dug. This diagram illustrates the sheer scale of what followed. Between 800 and 900 male captives were pulled from the fort, chained, and divided into small blocks of 5 or 6. Group by group, they were forced to kneel at the edge of the marketplace trenches and systematically beheaded. The criteria for execution were strictly biological. Companions of Muhammad examined the captives. Any male child who had begun to grow pubic hair was legally classified as a combatant. pulled away from his mother and executed alongside the adults. Mohammed sat at the edge of the trench and watched. The assembly line executions continued through the morning and into the afternoon, until Ka'ab bin Asad and the rest of the tribe's grown males were entirely eliminated. This was a cold, calculated mass execution. By removing every male past the onset of puberty, the bloodline of the Banu Qurayza was permanently severed. The immediate aftermath was highly profitable. Following the massacre, Muhammad claimed a strict 20% cut of the war booty. This included the tribe's land, their livestock, and their surviving families. The remaining 80% of the property, along with the surviving women and young children, was distributed among the Muslim soldiers. 1,000 human beings were either kept as slaves or sold at premium prices, generating massive wealth for the army. By sunset, the Jewish presence in Medina had been entirely removed. The expulsion of the first two tribes and the final massacre of the third left the city's resources and territory solely in the hands of the Muslim community. Muhammad and his followers, who had entered Medina as refugees, now possessed the city's land, its property, and its people. The hosts who had welcomed them were dead or enslaved, and their 1,000-year history in the oasis was replaced by the expansion of a new state.